Hello, everyone. Okay, I see waving. I can always count on you to let me know that you can hear me. I was just doing something yesterday. Actually, I want to do gallery view for a minute where, sorry, I have so many things happening today, where the sound didn't work. So does the sound work? Do I have a thumbs up of everyone? You can hear me well? Okay, awesome. Okay, can we just have a moment? How much do I miss you guys? Didn't it feel like we were together all the time and then suddenly I tried to have a life again and now we're like not together every week? It's kind of heartbreaking. Some big things have happened since the last time I saw you. Probably the most important being I turned 55, y'all. I'm getting closer. I was going to say closer to retirement. It's literally not true. I'm not ever going to retire. But anyway, I've missed you all very much. I'm super excited to see you. I'm scrolling because I want to see all of your faces. I see some people entering, and I just want to make sure no one's being held up anywhere, and it doesn't look like it. I wanted you to see, I'm just kind of scanning this for a minute, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but I am scanning because I want to see faces. I see mostly names. I see a puppy dog. Debbie, your dog's adorable. And the reason I wanted you guys to see each other is because I got to tell you, what I've loved about doing these classes, first, doing them during, the early stages of the pandemic and doing free classes and then trying to figure out a way for me to kind of like do my job, but also make sure that everyone has access to these classes. I just want you to look around the room as best as possible. And I don't even know if I can control that. So I'm going to try one more time and kind of scroll. Because of so many of you who want to take classes and it's a pandemic, people aren't working, and paying for classes just seems like a luxury right now because you don't know what's going to happen with rent or mortgage or what's going on. You've been taking the classes, and there are other people here who do have the means right now and have not been impacted in the same way financially from the pandemic, and they have been paying the fee. And this was just like it was an experiment, you guys. I was like, I don't know, I'll just throw out a suggested fee, see what happens. Is most important to me was that the classes were free. And I just want you to know that you guys are just like making it happen. And I have never felt prouder of a community that I feel like we've built together. So many of you, like Beverly, every time I come on, you're the first person who waves at me to let me know there's sound. And you've been with me through all of this. I mean, so many of you have. And so I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. And that as much as you guys have been emailing me to tell me what you're getting out of the classes, you just have to know how much I get out of these classes, just seeing you. And so, yeah, it was really weird to like not have a class for a few weeks. It kind of freaked me out, but here we are and we're going to have a class. And oh my gosh, I've been so busy in the kitchen today. So today's topic is, oh, I know what I haven't done. And thank you for the happy birthday. Sorry. Oh, Donna, you've missed everyone too. So we have not, oh, Pam, you're 55. I didn't ask, and I can't believe I didn't. If you are new to Zoom, at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a chat bubble. Click chat, and chat will open up, and that's one way to talk to me, although sometimes I get a little busy cooking and I don't pay attention. But it's also a way for you right now to tell all of us where you're from. So where are you? Where are you today? Not even where you're from. Where are you today? Maybe some of you are kind of hopping around. And I'm in Colorado Springs, if you're new to me. We got Wisconsin and Arizona and Kenosha, Wisconsin. We have Maine and Tennessee, California, California, Nevada, and parts of Colorado. My heart goes out to all of you with the fires that are going on. It's absolutely, I think about the people and about the animals, and it's just heartbreaking. Oh, we have Las Vegas and Texas. It is so good to see you guys. I'm so glad you're here. So if you're new to me, couple things. My name is J.L. Fields. I am a cookbook author. I'm a culinary instructor here in Colorado Springs. I run the Colorado Springs Vegan Cooking Academy, which of course went on pause in March of 2020. And so I've been teaching these classes online, and I'm thrilled to meet you. And today the topic is basic Buddha bowls. And many of the topics, actually almost all of the topics, since we started this new platform of sliding scale, pay what you can, I think all these topics have come from you guys, from the surveys that I've done, either through my newsletter or on Facebook or here. We did a poll here too. So the Buddha Bowl class is because you wanted it. I am going to jump in and let you know about some of the upcoming classes, just so that we don't lose track of that. And they are The next one is going to be on a Saturday. I think it's the 26th of September. It's on my website, jlgoesvegan.com. I will post a link right now. Dave is coming back, and our topic is going to be, here we go, let's see. The topic is how to veganize family recipes. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that one. I'm actually gonna do sort of a, well, Dave, so it's a Hungarian goulash. Well, let me rephrase that. It's a Hungarian goulash because Dave is Hungarian, and he's gonna do a version with a plant-based meat. I'm gonna do a version that's more whole foods, which is with chickpeas. And I'm also going to do the version that I grew up with in the Midwest when we thought it was called goulash. You all know what I'm talking about. Ground meat, elbow macaroni, and a can of tomatoes. And we thought we were eating goulash. And then you marry a Hungarian and he's like, oh, that is not goulash. That is called chili mac. You got it wrong. But anyway, so that's what we're going to do for how to veganize family recipes. And then based on the last class, and someone wanted to hear about my trip to France last year, the vegan French trip, I decided to do a vegan French cooking class. And I've done that one in person here in Colorado Springs. So we'll be doing vegan French cooking. And then I haven't set a date yet. And I don't know if I can do a poll while we're talking, but I'm just kind of curious. Oh, I am going to add a question. Let's do a poll. Let's see, is it gonna let me do it? Add a question. Thanks to you guys for being so, is it gonna let me? Okay, maybe it's not. Poll one, I don't know, edit. Okay, I'm trying so hard. It's not letting me. Okay, never mind. So here's the question, just tell me in the, ooh, pierogi and stuffed cabbage. That sounds really good. Let me know in the chat. I'm going to be in Illinois to visit my mommy and daddy again in October. Dad's doing pretty well, you guys. 6th round of chemo. He still needs chemo. That's all I can say. But he's feeling pretty good. So Dave and I are going to go together, and then mom and dad are pulling their RV up into their park in their yard, and I'm staying in their RV so that I can actually be like this much closer to mom and dad because we have to do socially distanced visiting. So anyway, I decided it's the week before my next book comes out. And if you're on my email list, hey, you need to get on my email list, because if you're on my email list in a week or so, I'm going to be sending you an email where some of you could get a copy of the book for free in advance. And it's called The Complete Plant-Based Diet. And I thought I would do a cooking demo that combines some easy, wholesome recipes with RV cooking. So like tiny kitchen, you're in an RV, what can you do with a 3-quart Instant Pot maybe? So anyway, that's coming up. So that information will be on jlgoesvegan.com/classes. Now, for those of you who are new, you're like, shut up already. We want to see the cooking. But if you're new, you don't understand. That's not how things roll around here. I do whatever I want. I talk about all the things. So let's talk about 2 things that have nothing to do with basic foodable. I'm having a beer today. Anybody else having a beer or a glass of wine? Cheers. You guys know I like to have a few adult beverages. What up, Christina? Oh, you got coffee? Is that what you're drinking, Christina? Got it. Okay, so I got to tell you, I am drinking a new to me beer. I'm looking now because I just want to see what everybody else is doing. And it is from Metric Brewing, which is local. And it's got the best name ever. Chocolate Dad Belt. I don't even know what that means, but the chocolate's vegan. The whole thing's vegan. And it's not exactly a stout, but, you know, we had snow this week, and I just kind of felt like, you know, stout season. But here's something else completely random. And I know some of you don't drink, so, you know, enjoy your soda or your coffee or whatever you're doing. So I got a special delivery today here in Colorado Springs. There is a new, I'm looking for the link. There is a man named Drew Lavigny who has a dream to open an all vegan Italian bakery. Did I just see tears of joys from anybody else in Colorado Springs? I'm like, what? So he brought me off some of the goodies today. So if you guys are in Colorado Springs, I'm actually going to drop a link to his Kickstarter. I think he's over 60% of the way there. He's going to be cooking, doing his baking at Lulu's downstairs, which has a completely vegan kitchen. And he's going to start doing vegan pop-up dinners at Lulu's. And I thought I would try one of these cookies while we're all here together to see, what are these called? These sesame cookies. What do you guys, who are my Italian bakers here? Does that look good? I'm going to have a bite. Oh, is it a biscotti? Oh, I think you're right. See, what do I know? No, it's not. I think there's no, this is the biscotti. Here's the biscotti, which he said will be sliced thinner later. What are these? Well, anyway, I'm going all in because it's a sesame seed. Seeds are good for you. It's like part of the food groups. And it's delicious. I'm going to mute you, mute me while I'm chewing. So in this chat while I'm chewing, tell me the things that are most important to you that you want to learn about Buddha bowls. I'm going to chew. Okay, components. SOS free sauces. Let's see, is that Dicey? Told me SOS, for those of you, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, means salt, oil, and sugar free, I think. I think today's actually is accidentally SOS. Now that no, it's not. No, I use olive oil. But we can talk about some alternatives. Sauces. I did make a sauce, and I'm going to have a recipe for you guys. Seasonings, how to do fast and easy. Okay, I think you're, oh, girl, whoever asked about keto, I know nothing about keto, so I have absolutely no idea. I truly don't. So I'm sorry about that. And so if you are new to me, the thing that I should probably explain too is that I really just do straight up vegan cooking in these classes. And so I don't really put an eye toward like allergies or sort of maybe some ingredients and some people choose to not use based on a dietary choice, but a lot of my stuff is super flexible. So I think you'll find your way around just fine. But so I'm sorry, I'm not even sure what the elements are of keto. So I do apologize for that. Okay, so I think what I have going fast during the week. Okay, beans and lentils. Okay, you guys, so we got it. I think that I'm gonna be able to help you out here. I'm actually going to, this is funny, this has been going the whole time. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the elements of a basic Buddha bowl, and then I'm going to do 3 for you today. And one is a cook along. How many people are cooking along with me today? I just always like to know. Don't feel pressure. I like literally want to know because it's going to help me determine how much are we actually talking about this, or are you watching and you're going to cook later, which is fine. But if you are cooking along, just say yes right now. So Maria, or is it Maria, is cooking along. Cooking and listening. Cool. Diane is. All right. So we're good. So I'm just going to say for those of you, when you got your confirmation for this class, you got the recipe. So if those of you who are doing this haven't started cooking yet and haven't started cooking your quinoa, go ahead and get that going. And so the basic Buddha burrito bowl, which is kind of perfect example of the elements of a Buddha bowl, is we want a grain, which in this case, the quinoa, which is really a seed, but it can also kind of stand in for protein, is that choice. I'm actually not using it today because I bulk cooked something else yesterday for a demo I was doing for the New Mexico Virtual Veg Fest. So I'm going to use farro today. But go ahead and get your quinoa going, and you can have that going in these first few minutes. So a basic Buddha bowl. When I went vegan, I heard people talk about hippie bowls and Buddha bowls. I'm like, what are they? What are they talking about? So basically, I guess the easiest way to sort of describe it is that back in the day, when people said that they were vegan, people were like, oh, all you eat are beans, greens, and grains. Like that was a bad thing because, I mean, that's what I eat. I don't know about you guys, but the 5 food groups, let's just really be clear, make sure we're all on the same page since not everyone here identifies as vegan or plant-based or even vegetarian. The 5 vegan food groups are vegetables, fruit, beans and legumes, grains, and nuts and seeds. So those are the 5 foods, no matter what label you give yourself, vegan, plant-based, WFPB, any of those things, those are all a fact. Those are the 5 vegan food groups. And if you eat a diet filled with vegetables and fruits and beans and grains and nuts and seeds, you're going to have a really healthy, wonderful diet. Then some people may choose to also have vegan frozen pizza or vegan cupcakes or vegan mac and cheese. And all of that's vegan too. Some might not call that whole food, but it's definitely plant-based because it comes from a plant. By the way, can we just have a moment about that? So I have a book coming out with plant-based in the title, and some of you know how I feel about that term, because I feel like so many people are just like using it and not like whatever. Like I don't know how much meaning it has. And I have a perfect example for you. I was with a consulting client on Thursday, and they were like, oh yeah, I totally eat plant-based. Last night I had steamed broccoli, I had brown rice, and I had salmon. And I was like, I thought you said you ate plant-based. And we're like, well, most of my plate was plants. It was based in plants. And then I just had the salmon. So that's why sometimes the term is so confusing to people. And so I just want to make sure everyone here understands that what I mean by it is no animals are involved. We're not eating animals or anything that comes from the animals. But anyway, there are lots of ways to eat in a way in which you're still not eating animals, but you might call yourself something different. And around here, we don't care because we love everybody, don't we? But what we don't do is judge anybody in the chat section. I haven't even looked because I already know I don't even have to worry about it. That if somebody here eats oil, but you don't, why would you tell them that you don't? It's irrelevant, right? Because that you, they, it's all fine, right? And in the same way, when someone says, I don't eat oil, but you do, well, then you don't need to ask them why they don't eat oil because it's literally none of your business, right? So we're cool. We're just like going to eat our way. So like making sure we're all on an even playing field. Okay, so back to the hippie bowl. So a hippie bowl kind of means like if you would go to restaurants like, you know, years ago, which by the way, now most vegan restaurants, you'll walk in and also see a Buddha or a hippie bowl, is essentially one dish, a beautiful dish of food that brings together all of those elements of the 5 vegan food groups in one way or the other. But most of us tend to think of it from the beginning as beans, greens, and grains. But first, let's like open up that a little bit. So when we say beans here, we mean beans and legumes. And also we can mean honorary beans and legumes. And what I mean by that is pistachios actually have the same makeup as a bean does. So if you made a bowl of food and you wanted to use your bean or your protein source as pistachios, A-okay. Peanut butter. So peanuts are legumes. So you could have a hippie bowl in the morning of oatmeal, there's your grain, peanut butter, there's your legume. And then let's see, what would we do for a green? Well, I mean, we put kale in smoothies, so I don't know. We could do a savory oatmeal peanut butter dish, which suddenly is sounding delicious to me. That's no different than peanut sauce. I might have to make that happen. Anyway, beans can also include tofu and tempeh because they start as soybeans. And they can also include more broadly things like seitan, which is not a bean at all. It's vital wheat gluten, but it has a really high protein content. So you could kind of count that as your bean if you wanted to as well. So that's the bean element, which you can also sort of think of as the protein element. And then the greens, which it's not just greens, but a lot of times we think of leafy greens like bok choy or spinach or chard or arugula or whatever the leafy green is, you know, kale. I mean, of course, kale. Why wouldn't we use kale? But if you think more broadly, just think of the grain or greens as vegetables, okay? So as we're putting a bowl together, we're gonna have our protein, which is rooted in beans and legumes. We're gonna have a vegetable that's on the lighter side, so like a less starchy, right? So we're talking about leafy greens. We might be talking about summer squash. It could be, well, it could be, you know, winter squash if you wanted to as well. But it could just be all tomatoes. It could just be whatever you want it to be. And then the grain, we tend to think of like brown rice, or I'm using farro today. I'm using millet today. But you also can think of it in terms of starchy vegetables like potatoes, because I'm making French fries today. I mean, you wouldn't know it because I had my air fryer going forever and I haven't put them in yet. So I'm going to do them in a minute. They can also be things like a butternut squash. Like if you stuffed a butternut squash with maybe some black beans and you sauteed it with kale and mushrooms, and then you stuffed your butternut squash and you baked it. It's basically a hippie bowl in that half of that butternut squash. So does that make sense what I mean by those sort of 3 elements? Even though we kind of think beans, greens, and grains, we're really talking about broadly proteins, we're talking about vegetables, and we're talking about grains or starchy vegetables. And then if you want to get sassy, you can add an element with our seeds and our nuts. And today I'm going to show you a cashew cream that I've made that I'm going to put with the burrito bowl. But you could also do like a sunflower seed sauce, or you could do a peanut sauce over something. So you can add that fourth element to it. And then I actually have one of my greens today that I have ready for you. I massaged with a cranberry balsamic vinegar that I made with you guys a while back. And I made a fresh batch yesterday for a demo. And so that now I brought in the fruits. So there are all of the 5 food groups. So does that make sense? Are there questions about what I've said so far? Will I be sending recipes? Well, in your confirmation, you got the recipe to the basic burrito bowl today. And in the, when I send the link to the private video that only people who registered can view, you'll also get the cashew cream recipe, but I won't be sending all of the recipes to what I'm doing because some of them aren't really recipes. They're just how I cook, which is one of the things I like to do here. And also because some of them are from my books. And so you might actually have some of them. So I hope that makes sense. And okay, it doesn't look like there are other questions, so we're gonna get going. So first off, let's start with the thing that you probably didn't expect, which is French fries. So let me just get these potatoes going. So I have some potatoes that I cut earlier, and I'm going to show you what I've been using because you all know that I'm using French fries all the time. So I bought this. I don't know if I've shown it to you. Did I ever show you this French fry cutter? So you like put a potato in here, and then you just go bam, and all the fries come out here. It's like amazing, and it's a game changer. So I sliced my potatoes earlier, soaked them in water to pull some of the starch out, and then I've tossed them into this bowl. I drizzled a little olive oil on it. If those of you who don't use oil, I highly recommend drizzling a little aquafaba, which is the juice from a can of chickpeas, because it'll actually give you some of that crispness you're looking for, kind of that browning. It won't quite be golden, but it'll give you some browning, and you can do that without the oil. But I just did a drizzle. And by the way, when I say a drizzle of olive oil, I mean I literally, if it's a teaspoon, it's a miracle. Okay, so here's what I'm going to put on it. Here's how I like to do an air fried French fry. I always add a little starch. This is actually potato flour today. And the reason I do that is because it makes the French fries puff up a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little garlic powder for flavor and a little more puffiness. And then because this is going to be poutine, which I'm going to explain in a minute, I'm going to do some herbs de Provence seasoning. And so what I have in here is thyme and fennel and rosemary and lavender and tarragon. And when I tell you what I put into my gravy, it'll all make sense. So when I'm putting together meals like this, and let me put a little paprika, and then I'll give you back so you're not just like looking at me. And let's do a little paprika for color. And then I'm going to do a pinch of Tour salt. If you don't do salt, you don't have to. I will show you one of the things that is in my new cookbook coming out is a spicy umami blend, which the base is tomato powder and dried mushrooms and then a whole bunch of seasoning. And so that can be a salt alternative. And then I'm just going to mix these up with my tongs and get these going, and I'm going to get them in the air fryer. And then I'm going to get back to flavor profiles when you are putting together these basic Buddha bowls. So I'm going to tell you why I care about the topic of the basic Buddha bowl. But let me put this in the air fryer first. I made it nice and hot. And I want to do this for about 20 minutes. So I love teaching about Buddha bowls, especially to new vegans. When I'm teaching in my culinary class, I teach about them all the time because a lot of people get very confused about what to eat. So if you're brand new to plant-based cooking and eating, it's like, what do I eat? And I always try to bring it back down to the basics, and then you can build on top of that, right? And so I don't want you to just have the basics of like, well, now I know what goes into a bowl. I want this to work in the real world, in your life. Like, how can I have a simple, healthy, delicious meal on Tuesday night when I get home from work, or when I push myself away from my desk at work since I'm working from home, like whatever your situation is, and you want things to come together really quickly. So I'm going to show you how you can do some batch cooking and then start to pull some things in together that could make some things that you make on the weekend taste different throughout the week with different profiles. But going back to the flavor profile, and that was the last class for those of you who were with me. What I did here was so poutine, and by the way, if you're from Canada, I know this isn't poutine, so don't judge me, okay? It's poutine-ish. So poutine is a Canadian dish that is usually French fries, and it is a beef gravy with cheese curds. So none of that is happening here, right? So instead, what I'm doing is I'm making French fries, but then I made a bean, not beef, B-E-A-N gravy, which is also my bean, my legume, my protein in the form of gravy. And I'm going to plate it and serve it with arugula and fresh dill. So I'm going to have my starchy vegetable. I'm going to have my legume. I'm going to have my leafy green, the arugula. And you wait till you see how fun arugula is when you put hot food on top, because the arugula is raw. And I know it sounds a little weird, but you're just going to have to trust me. Now, one of the ways you can also do this is you can air fry or bake or just make some tofu and then stir your tofu in the bean gravy and then serve it over the French fries. And then that kind of looks like a bean curd, but you're getting like sort of a double on the beans. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. Oh, Lori said that she wished she had a fry cutter that could handle sweet potatoes and Japanese potatoes. And you know, the one that I just showed you, it does beautifully on sweet potatoes. I've been through like 3 or 4 fry cutters since I wrote my book, The Vegan Air Fryer, and I was doing a lot of potatoes, and they kept breaking and they kept breaking. And finally I was like, why am I not just spending the money? So I think I spent $60 on this, and it is heavy duty steel. And I just go, boom. I get a workout too, and I get my beans done. So back to the seasoning I used for the French fries. So my gravy recipe, you guys have seen this gravy recipe, some iteration of it in at least 4 of my books, but it's my basic white bean gravy. Sometimes you'll see it in some of my books with some mushrooms. And the base of this gravy is vegetable broth, white beans. Today I used Great Northern. I've done a dark beefy style gravy before where I use some dark, like some red beans, but today I used white beans, red onion, soy sauce, a little bit of vegan butter, optional, nutritional yeast to thicken it up. And then I added spices like rosemary and thyme. And sage, which is what I do during the holiday season. But that's why when I was putting the potatoes together, I'm like, okay, I want all of this to kind of pull together. And when I'm pulling meals together like this, you'll see that I actually don't over salt. I mean, I added some salt to my French fries, as you saw, and I have a little soy sauce in the gravy, but nothing too heavy-handed because there's so many other flavors they're going to pull together. So I usually recommend to folks when you're pulling together a Buddha bowl or a hippie bowl, don't over season, don't over salt, add the food that you want and the flavor profile that you want, and then taste it to determine, does it need just a little pop of something? So that's just a little advice. So Hillary, I will, you know what, I'm going to write myself a note. I'm going to make sure I put a link to I'm just going to write a thing right now, links. I'm going to put a link when I send you guys the video to the French fry cutter. So, okay. So the French fries are going, the gravy's already done. I already told you what are in the ingredients for the gravy, but I'll talk you through that when it's time to eat. But let's start a couple of other things. So for those of you who are making your Buddha bowl, how are you doing with your quinoa? Did you see how I was just talking, just to give you time to let your quinoa cook up? Anybody, are you guys cool with me going on with the basic Buddha bowl, or would you rather I do another recipe first to have you get caught up? I'll remind those of you who are watching that this is how the Buddha bowl goes down. You make the quinoa first, and then you fluff it with a fork. Once it's done, in a skillet, you put your beans and your spinach in, and then and you really just cook that until the spinach wilts, and then you just layer your bowl with your quinoa and with your beans and with your spinach. So I'm gonna yes, somebody just asked if this is recorded, and yes, it is recorded. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the basic Buddha bowl because I think it's, oh, I can't decide. No, I'm not, because that one's gonna come together really quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna do a Mediterranean greens and beans Buddha bowl. So I'm gonna go like this so you can kind of see what's going on. So here's how we'll get started. I'm going to just heat up my bowl. You could do this in a skillet if you wanted to, but I have a pan that I'm going to use. And you guys know that I have really been into using balsamic vinegar as my base for sautés lately. I think it's just been so much fun. And those of you who are new to me, if you don't know about umami, man, oh man, umami's my thing. I love umami. And so this is just a basic balsamic vinegar. I'm going to heat that in the pot just to get a little flavor going, because what I'm going to start with actually are some mushrooms. So I just have a blend of like shiitake and baby bellas, and I'm going to put these in. And so remember, when we're talking about a basic Buddha bowl and we're talking about beans, greens, and grains, greens are vegetables. So now I've already added one element of a vegetable. So I've got my mushrooms in here. And what else are mushrooms? Why do I like to use mushrooms? Other than they're wonderful. Let's see. Umami. You got it, you guys. So mushrooms are a form of umami. It's going to give us a meatiness as we bite into this bowl of yum. I want you to see how quickly, again, for those of you who are new, nothing fancy over here in this kitchen. This is just how I live. So you can see how quickly that balsamic is soaking up, because those mushrooms are just drinking in all of that wonderful balsamic. But look at the color that's changed. You can already imagine sort of the flavor you're getting from that. So I'm doing it sort of like a Mediterranean-ish style of flavors, and that's going to make sense in a minute. But I'm going to keep sauteing these mushrooms until the balsamic is gone. Now what I'm going to do is add a simple can of diced tomatoes. Nothing fancy, nothing added, just the diced tomatoes. And I'm going to keep that going. And I'm going to use today cannellini beans. So cannellini beans are a white bean, super creamy. You guys, look at my new nail polish. Isn't it cute? I just got it yesterday. It's vegan nail color. It's a little cow. Dairy cows. Well, it's not a cow at all. But anyway. So I like a really creamy bean for this. And cannellini beans are so wonderful. That's why I used the Great Northern in the gravy, because I wanted to use two different kinds. So I'm going to add this can of beans. And in this case, it is a can of beans. But here's the good news, you guys. Remember how I told you that I really like it if you do some bulk cooking on the weekend, like getting your beans cooked on the weekend, grains. By the way, no shame in using canned beans. We use canned beans plenty, and we use dried beans plenty. But if you're trying to save money, if you're trying to save some time, and have a better impact on the environment with fewer cans, some of the things you can do on the weekends is do some of your advanced cooking, which includes cooking some beans in advance. So if you had soaked a pound of white beans last night, cooked them up in the pressure cooker this morning, you could have used some of them in this recipe, and you could use some of them in the gravy recipe. And now you have two distinctly different meals, two distinctly different flavor profiles, but it's just one batch of beans that you made with no seasoning. You just throw the beans in a pot, you cook them with a bay leaf, and then you can just turn them into a wide variety of things. So I've got these cannellini beans in now with my mushrooms, with my tomatoes, and then I'm going to add one of the secret ingredients, which is I'm going to add olives. So this is a natural way to add in a food fat. So this is fat, it's food, it's an olive. So we're just going to do the olives directly in here. So now you can see that we have just added naturally a little flavor, a little saltiness, a little brininess. And you guys, why do I love olives when I'm cooking something like this? I know you know the word, because I think we've said it a million times already today. Umami, that's right. Briny vegetables are a form of umami. For those of you who are new to this, I'm going to encourage you to go to my website, jlgoesvegan.com. Go to the Cooking Academy page. You scroll down, you're going to see 15 of the 16 classes I taught March through, I think, was it July, you guys? I think through July. And one of them is on vegan umami. But umami is this meatiness and a sense of savory. And so these olives are going to bring that out. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to add anything yet. I'm actually going to let this get nice and hot. So when you're cooking at home, and if you were doing this at your end of your work day, and I know you want a recipe, are you ready for it? Are you ready? Do you have a pen and paper? That's sarcasm, because you don't need a pen and paper. There's nothing fancy here. I took some mushrooms and I sauteed them in balsamic vinegar. I added a can of diced tomatoes. I added the equivalent of a can of cannellini beans, so about 1.5 to 2 cups of beans. And now I have it simmering. And as soon as I start to see it bubbling up a little bit, I don't really want it to boil, but as soon as I see that, then I'm gonna put this beautiful, beautiful rainbow chard in. And that's gonna be my leafy green. I don't wanna overcook it. I don't want it to get super soggy. So when I put it in, I'm basically gonna put it in, stir, and remove it from the heat pretty quickly so that I have a variety of texture when I'm biting into it. Any leafy green would do. Baby spinach, regular spinach, kale, arugula, Swiss chard, bok choy, whatever you want. I just wanted the chard. I wanted the variety and the color. I've got a rainbow chard, so I've got some red here to go with my tomatoes. It makes my food match in the same way that I have blue shoes on today because I have blue jeans and I have a blue shirt. I'm matchy-matchy. That's what I do. I like my food to matchy-match too because we eat with our eyes first. So this is going to go in shortly. But what I want to tell you is about the grain that I'm going to have with it. So originally, the farro that I made was going to be with this recipe because it's sort of like Mediterranean Italian. And by the way, notice I haven't even put any spices in yet. What spices do you want me to put into this? So you know that we've got a balsamic mushroom, diced tomatoes, cannellini beans, and we have some olives, and some capers are going to make an appearance soon. So based on that, someone said more umami. Oregano, great idea. Someone also suggested sage. Let's do a little oregano. Love it, love it. What else? Basil, good idea. Okay, loving this. Oh, and I'm starting to get a little bubbly here. So you can see that's just what I want. And notice that I didn't add any extra broth. I want this to be thick. I'm not making soup, right? So, you know, when we're talking about bowl meals, sometimes we think soup and stew. That's not what I'm trying to make here. Let's find a little oregano. And, oh, there's some sage too. All right, I'm gonna take you guys up on that. So we have sage, and then, oh, I already did the oregano, didn't I? Did you guys say basil? Is that what the other one was? Yeah, okay, good. All right, that's good. I think between all of those, we should be in great shape. Thank you, team, for helping me make this. And it's going to be so yummy. And notice I'm not measuring anything. Are you guys okay? Take a deep breath. It's okay. You don't have to measure things. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you get it wrong. And what's the worst that can happen? Well, maybe you won't eat it. Okay, that could happen. Okay, so I want to get back to, I've got this nice and bubbly. I don't want to overcook it, but I've got to tell you about the grain. So I was going to do farro because sort of Italian, Mediterranean grain. And then yesterday I was doing this very brief demo for the Red and Green Veg Fest. They're based in New Mexico. It was a virtual Veg Fest. And the topic was umami. Now you guys are probably, you're probably sick of it, but I literally don't care because umami is life. It is everything and it's wonderful. It's why our food tastes delicious. But having said that, I don't know if you guys go to a lot of Veg Fest, but I speak at a lot of Veg Fest. And here's a true story. Usually when a Veg Fest season starts, I do the same demo everywhere I go because it's a lot of work. Like you get on a plane, you travel, you're trying to get your ingredients, you're doing a demo, and it's like I need to go on autopilot. So I've just been laughing because I've been on these different shows, and they're like, "What do you want to talk about?" And I'm like, "Vegan umami," because that's what I got for you right now. Okay, so I'm gonna put this down on low until I'm ready. I want to show you. Oh, let's make some fries. Oh my gosh, these fries are so good. I might let Dave come out and eat when that's done. Okay, so I was doing vegan umami yesterday for the Red and Green Veg Fest, and I decided to add a bunch of those elements that we've talked about over the last few months. One, I made millet, and I toasted it. So I toasted it by just putting it on, you know, I made it in the Instant Pot. So I put the saute function on a high, on more, and I just toasted it, and I just kept stirring it and stirring it straight dry, right? So there's no liquid, you guys. This dry millet goes into the hot pot. You can do this in a cast iron skillet too. And it's on a high heat, but you have to keep stirring it so it doesn't burn or get rancid. And you'll know when it's done because it gets super aromatic and it just begins to pop. And some of you heard that pop because I've done it with you before. So that's one element of umami. So then I decided, what else can I pull into this, you know, to really demonstrate umami? So I did use my blend that I've been telling you guys about. So I used my dried mushrooms, which is umami, powdered tomato powder, which is also an umami, with some spices. And then when I was done making the millet during the demo, I actually decided to stir in some capers, which is another briny, sort of salty vegetable. And I just loved the color because then the millet is sort of got this red hue from the tomato powder and the spices and a little smoked paprika. And then I've got the capers. So this is a grain that I could have just cooked by itself, straight up millet, and then through the week added different things. But I went ahead, because this is a flavor profile I use a lot, I just went ahead and added the seasoning to the millet and the capers in here. And so I'm gonna add them to a bowl. What am I gonna eat? Let's see, let's eat with this bowl. And then, because we're in the real world, right? Don't clutch your pearls, ladies. I'm gonna microwave it because I have a microwave and I'm gonna use it. So usually a serving of, for me, for grains, I usually start with a half a cup. And you know, you can do whatever you want. In this case, I think I'm gonna do about 3/4. So I'm just filling this up and I'm just gonna heat it up real quick. And so I'm trying to just be real with you. When I'm done working at the end of the day, this took me, how long did it take for you guys for the bubbling up? It was like 5 minutes. That could have been done in 5 minutes. I was just busy talking to you. So now, while that's microwaving, I'm gonna add all of this chard. And I want you to see the texture of this. Look at how thick that is. That is just the beans, the mushrooms, some spices and seasoning, and the tomatoes. And now I'm going to add the chard. So now I've got my beans and I've got my greens, and I'm gonna do a quick stir, and I'm gonna actually shut the heat off because I'm not concerned about it cooking. I want it to wilt a little bit. And I do this so that I have an interesting texture when I'm eating it. So now look how that came down so quickly. The greens were all the way up here, just one quick stir, and the color, you guys, is magnificent. So, okay, so now my millet is ready. It is steaming. And then what I'm going to do, so many things in here. And then I'll stop and take questions on this recipe. Don't you fear. And now, oh, that's not big enough. We need a big measuring cup for this. I want all the things. So I'm going to take a scoop, 1 cup scoop of these beans, these greens, and these tomatoes. And then, because we like to see pretty things, let's make sure we can see. And make sure you can see that beautiful millet. And then the way I'm going to serve it is simply by putting capers on top. And then I feel like this one calls for a little black pepper, don't you think? Let's put a little black pepper on top. So in a matter of 10 minutes, look at this beautiful, beautiful bowl of food. So we have millet that was made in advance. I make millet in the Instant Pot. I do a cup to let's see, I do 1 cup of dry millet to 1.5 cups liquid, 10 minutes, natural release. Look at those beautiful capers. Look at that lovely chard. Super, super quick. I'm gonna take a bite just to make sure it tastes good. And do you have any questions for this recipe? Top with hemp seeds. Well, actually, hemp seeds are gonna come into another recipe, but that's a great idea, Kim. Look up what's happening. I can't find it either. Oh, the powdered bouillon. First off, this is delicious. So, questions about this recipe. Some of you know that I've been talking a lot about powdered bouillon, and the company that I used to use all the time, it's called Mossel, Massel. They're Australian, and it's been really hard to find. And so I've just been going to Whole Foods. Well, I don't go, I have my groceries delivered now. But in the bulk section, that sounded really obnoxious. You know, I'm having them delivered, right? Because I don't go to the grocery store because of COVID. Anyway, so I go into the bulk section where the spices are, and they have dry powdered bouillon. They have vegetable bouillon there. They even have chicken style bouillon powder. The reason I like the powders is because I can measure them out, control the sodium, because I usually go for the low salt one, and I can build flavor and then choose when I want to add a pinch of some kind of sodium, whether it's soy sauce or miso or salt. So other questions about the recipe. What kind of white beans? I used cannellini beans, and you could use any bean that you want. I love white beans in this, and I like them because they're sort of, you know, Italian beans. So, but yeah, so that's it. And those capers and those olives just give it that pop of flavor. So let me get some of this stuff out of the way so that I can now move on to the poutine. And I think I'm going to make Dave's day when I walk in and give him a plate of food. So let me move some things over so you can really see how this comes together, because it's a little weird. Just trust the process. So first, I have raw arugula in here. So has anybody, say no if you've never had arugula before in the chat. No. Okay, some people love arugula and some people have never had it. So arugula is lots of fun. You can buy it, you know, in bulk from the produce section, but all they had yesterday for me was in this container. So it cooks up really fast. When you cook it, if I put this entire thing in a pot or a skillet, it would, like, maybe if I'm lucky, be a half cup cooked, which is why I rarely cook arugula. It's delicious, but it just really wilts and cooks super quickly and cooks down. So I like to use it raw for a couple of reasons. One, the flavor is got this like peppery flavor, a little spicy. So it's a really fun green. It's very surprising, but it also wilts up very quickly when you put something warm on it. So when I'm doing poutine, let's go back to traditional poutine would be like if you went out and you're at some outside fair, you're in Quebec, you're in Montreal, and you get this like bowl of poutine, and it's got French fries with gravy on it and cheese curds on it, right? So you don't really think of it as a meal. You think of it as like, oh my God, I just had some poutine. That was amazing. Like I just went and got a corn dog or something. So, so I'm turning it into a meal. And so one of the ways I've turned it into a meal is I made a gravy. I'm going to bring it over so you can see it. So I've made a bean gravy. It's one of my, who here has had my bean gravy? I have people who take my holiday cooking class every single year just for my bean gravy, which I think is so funny. Oh, you can use any leafy green, Vicki, so Vicki, as I said, I can't stand, oh, I don't think it's bitter at all. That's so interesting. But hey, we all have different taste buds. It was Vicki who asked. So I would use another leafy green that can wilt really quickly from heat, right? And so I would do probably baby spinach, although we did see that chard do that pretty quickly. So anyway, this gravy, again, is onion, white beans. I used Great Northern today. Mushrooms, soy sauce, a little vegan butter, veggie broth, and nutritional yeast to thicken it up. And then I added things like rosemary and thyme. So here's how I'm going to start this. I'm actually going to put a little on the arugula first to sort of, quote marks, cook it. And what I mean is I just want to help it wilt a little bit. Now, the other reason I like the raw arugula is because I like the visual of sort of the, I have things beeping at me right now. Everything's fine. I like how the leaves kind of sprout out from the hot food. And I just, again, it goes kind of back to texture. So I'm going to now get my French fries, which are stunning, by the way. Here are my air fried French fries. That was 20 minutes on 400. Don't they look gorgeous? And look at that color. Just look at that color. So I did 2 potatoes, and that means, oh, here, I want you to see what I'm doing. Means 1 for Dave and 1 for me. So we go like this, and I'm just going to put some of the French fries here. And then this is when I get more generous with the gravy. So the gravy already got things going. on the arugula, but now I'm just going to drizzle it over this. So usually when people say they're going to have a hippie bowl at a restaurant, they're not expecting French fries and gravy over arugula. But let's keep in mind and go over the elements. White bean gravy is our protein. It's our bean. And we have our green, which is our arugula. And we have our starchy vegetable instead of a grain, and it's a potato. So now, just, for quality control, I'm going to have some. And I wish you were here right now because you would love me, because this is delicious. If you have questions about this, ask them. I'm actually going to go give this to Dave. Okay. Any questions for me? I would go to a restaurant that served that. Oh, thank you, Vicki, about the gravy and the way. I want to make sure. Do you puree the meat? Yeah, John. No, is it John? It's John's iPad. I don't know if it's John. John's iPad. Yes, I forgot the major point. I used an immersion blender. You can also put it in a blender. So like if you just did, like I just did it in the Instant Pot or like the Melty because it's just easier. But this is a recipe where you can just put everything in a saucepan just like this. And as soon as it, basically as soon as it comes to a boil, I bring it down to a simmer. That's when I add the nutritional yeast to kind of thicken it up. And then I transfer 3/4 of it into a blender, whiz it up, put it back in with the others, because then if I leave a little bit of the beans, then it adds a little bit of a texture. Like sometimes that's what you expect when you're having a gravy, right? Remember old traditional gravy where you kind of expected like little crumbly, yummy stuff from a skillet? So, but definitely, yeah, I definitely used an immersion blender. That was a great question. What could you use as a stand-in for the cheese curds? I use tofu. I mean, you could use a vegan cheese, and honestly, I've done Miyoko's mozzarella, and I make my own cheese. I think I've talked about this before. It's not my recipe. It's Sky Michaels. This book I absolutely love, the Non-Dairy Evolution Cookbook, and there's an amazing mozzarella recipe in this. I make homemade soy milk first, and then I make this recipe, and I'll just do tiny little bowls of the mozzarella and leave it soaking in the brine, and then when I'm doing poutine, I just put that in. But I love doing it with tofu. That's one of Dave and I our go-to meals. He's probably really disappointed right now that I don't have tofu. So usually what we do is in one air fryer, we're air frying the fries. In the other one, we're air frying the tofu. Then I add the air fried tofu into the gravy and stir it. So it kind of like the crunchiness of the tofu drinks in a little bit of the gravy, and then put that over fries with the green. Let's see. So someone is asking me privately that you haven't been receiving the replay or the recipes after the classes, and that means that you probably need to check your spam folder, because I've been sending it out to everybody within, I don't know, you guys, I think I'm getting it out to you within 3 or 4 hours after every class. So if you registered, and you did, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't, because that's the only way to get the link, then it's going to the email that you registered for, and you might want to check your spam folder. So let's see, do you season the tofu to air fry? I will, and since we're still talking about poutine, I will not season it much because there's so much flavor in the gravy. And so what I do to the tofu is make sure that it's going to get puffy. So I'll do a little bit of the starch like I did with the fries, and just to kind of get that crunchy exterior to it. But I don't overly season because the gravy is going to have all that great season. So there is a version of a gravy recipe on my website. It's also in my book, Vegan Pressure Cooking. There's also one, I believe, in Vegan Meal Prep. And I'm pretty sure there's one in at least one other one of my cookbooks. But there's a version of it. Let's see. Any other questions? I'm going to scroll back up just to see what I missed. Whoever said you need an air fryer, I could not agree with you anymore. More. I think you do too. Christina, that's cute. You're like, bitter in a good way. I got you. I agree with you. All right. So now let's go to the burrito bowl. And if you have other questions about any of these recipes, it's a-okay. Oh, and I did want you to see the millet that I used with the capers. This is just, you know, so if millet is new to you, it's just a whole grain. Looks a little bit like a quinoa seed, except that it's bigger and rounder. Not quite like couscous though. Okay, let me cover up this. Oh, right. Wrong one. This one. Okay, so now we're going to do the burrito bowl. So in the recipe that I gave you, I have you make quinoa, and then I say in a skillet, get some things happening. But I, as you know, do whatever I want. And so I'm just going to show you how I would do this, because recipes, I get it, you guys. You want the recipes. Totally understand that. That's why I write cookbooks, because I know you want recipes. These classes are also intended to get you to think intuitively and to start grabbing things that make sense and not put so much pressure on yourself. And so what I did this morning was I just grabbed what I had, and I'm going to show you how I would put this burrito bowl together. So first, let's get a few fun things going on. So for the black beans, I'm using black beans today, and I had bulk cooked some black beans on Friday, so I got black beans that I can use like all for several more days. So I'm going to just get a nice heat going here, and I'm going to use some salsa. So just basic salsa. It's about a half a cup. I'm going to put this in the pan. I'm going to add the black beans. I've got about, I think about a cup of black beans here, because this is, you know, this could serve two, or it could just serve me. And then I'm just going to put the spinach in. Notice I'm not layering. I'm not doing a saute feature. I'm putting the heat on high, and I just added salsa, beans, and spinach. And I'm going to put the lid on top because the salsa is on the bottom. So it's going to start to kind of sizzle up to a little bit of a boil. The beans will be on top, and then the spinach will wilt on it. Because what I want to talk to you is about 2 different ways you can use greens for this recipe. So one, did I say greens? I did. So I've got spinach here. There's going to be another way, but let's talk about the green. So back to, so I used farro. I made farro yesterday. And so farro is like this really chewy, wonderful, kind of reminds me of Israeli couscous. So it's almost like pasta-like, but it is a whole grain. And it's got a chewiness to it. There's such a nice change from, I mean, I love brown rice, don't get me wrong, but I like it when I have grains that have a variety of textures so that I don't kind of get bored with the food that I'm having. So this farro I had just done in bulk. Now I want to show you a fun way to take things that you have and match it up to what you're cooking. So we're doing a burrito bowl. So, right, so we have, some of you have made quinoa at home. I'm going to use farro. And we've got beans, we've got salsa, we've got baby spinach, fine. But I started looking around in my cupboard, started looking around in my refrigerator, and I was like, okay, this farro is just plain farro, which is fine. And I could just scoop the bean mixture on it and it would be done. Or I can elevate it a little bit, make it a little bit more special, change the texture, add some elevation to the flavor. And here's how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do, what is this? Let's do a half a cup of farro. And I'm going to heat it up like I did before. But here's how I'm going to heat it up. Before I get it go, and you can, if you don't use a microwave, it's all good. Just do it how you would do it, probably in a saucepan. These are hatch green chilies. So I'm going to add some hatch green chilies to the farro. So this farro, when I made it, was just water and dried farro. No salt, no nothing, because I didn't know what it was destined to become. So I wanted to give it the opportunity to add a lot of flavors as I was cooking. Now I'm going to add some chopped scallions, the white and the green. Stir that up. Now I'm going to reheat it. I'll explain the method to my madness in a minute. Just gonna do a quick minute. So I'm going to serve it with some raw scallions too, but by having some of them lightly cooked and then some raw, I'm just adding more elements to the texture and to the flavor of the dish. So let's check on this, and I already have my salsa is bubbling up a little bit. I'm going to stir it. rogue spinach. I'm gonna stir this up a little bit. So I want that spinach to just lightly wilt. We're gonna cover this and let this keep going until, and then I want the hatch green chilies back. I want you to see how I'm gonna serve this. And then I'm gonna show you another bowl that we could do as well. Okay, so any questions right now with what's going on? Who's moving to Portland? I'm so jealous. I love Portland. I love Colorado Springs, though. Don't get mad at me, people in Colorado Springs. I just love Portland. I love that you guys are talking about Bob's Red Mill. Can you recommend a way to use frozen spinach? With COVID and the fires, fresh is not always possible. That's a great question. If I were going to use frozen spinach in this, I would probably put it in at the very end, but I probably would have thawed it first. And honestly, I feel like the taste of frozen spinach is strong. So I probably wouldn't use as much frozen spinach as I would raw baby spinach. That's just my opinion. Does anybody else have opinions on that? But that's a really good question, because you're right, it is kind of hard to get to some things now. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this bean. So first off, I'm going to take a few of this of the farro over here, because I'm going to show you why in just a second. That's going to become a second bowl, and it's going to be fun, I promise. So this is the original bowl. This is going to be later. So here's our bowl. When you're making a bowl meal, especially if you're having friends over, I always kind of like people to be able to see the elements. And so like I'll kind of try to line it up a little bit so that they can see the mix instead of just putting it. And you'll see that in restaurants sometimes. Like you'll get a bowl. How many of you, like when you've ordered a bowl at a vegan restaurant and it just kind of comes almost like an acai bowl in the morning where you have your banana and your peanut butter and your smoothie, but you'll get like the tofu is here, the roasted Brussels sprouts are here. So there's just something about the visual that I think is really fun. Okay, this is perfectly done. So now I have my bean and my green right here, okay? So I'm gonna scoop this in, put this down here so you can see, because I'm gonna do something fun. I'm gonna scoop this in right here, right next to it, but I wanna save some for my other bowl. Okay, then this is the cashew cream. This recipe, it'll be in the email that I send you, as well as with the description, the private link video of the class. So this is my cashew cream with a little smoked chipotle. So I've got this nice smokiness. So now what I'm gonna do is drizzle this. It's nice and thick. I'm just gonna kind of dollop it over the bowl. And then because I like things spicy, I'm gonna now add a little bit more of the hatch green chilies on top of that chipotle, of that cashew cream. And then I'm gonna take some of these scallions and just kind of put this over like this. Now you have a basic Buddha burrito bowl that has black beans, salsa, spinach, farro that's been reheated with hatch green chilies and scallions, green onions, and then a cashew cream that is basically lemon juice, garlic, little olive oil. You can omit if you don't use it. Pinch of salt, same thing, and then water till I get the texture I want, and with a cup of cashews. So this is the basic burrito bowl. Hatch, New Mexico. Oh, someone asking about the chilies. Oh, I always have green chilies with me. And I know I feel really bad as a Coloradan, but I do get the hatch green chilies because I'm sorry, it's really hard to find the Pueblo canned, but I mean, it's just this. And I use them all the time, but I want to show you another way to have some fun with this bowl. So yesterday I made well, I'll talk to you while I'm doing it. So I made that cranberry balsamic vinegar for the umami class. And then when I was done, I just added some chili pepper to it and chipotle because I knew I was doing this bowl today. So even though we have the greens that are in with the black beans, this is a cold avocado, kale, cranberry balsamic salad. And I'm going to take a little bit of that, if I can find something. So I'll show you. I'm just going to take a little bit of this and put it on the base. This is cold. I'm doing it on purpose. It seems a little weird, but you just have to trust the process. So I've got a cold kale massage salad. I've got my warm grain. And then I have hemp seeds in that, Kim. So I'm not going to put the cashew cream on this because I already have my seeds. So now I just took a little bit of the same thing and made it different. So now I have the farro, I have the massaged kale avocado salad, and I have the beans and grains. So this is a hippie bowl too. I'm giving you this example to say that you don't have to cook your vegetables. So hippie bowls could also be known as, wait for it, salads. Salads. They have beans in them, they have vegetables in them, and you can put grains in them. And by the way, even though these are warm, because I just reheated these, I could take all of this from the refrigerator and make a bowl that's like a salad of the massage kale salad cold, the cold leftover farro, and the cold leftover beans, and toss it together. And it's a beautiful salad, different than maybe the romaine salad I had the day before, and I'm still getting all the nutrients in it. So that is what I have for you today when it comes to the basic Buddha bowl. What questions do you have for me? And if you're having a drink, cheers. I'm going to look for mine. Where'd mine go? What's happening in here? I feel like people are taking things away from me. What questions do you guys have? Yeah, avocado. I mean, I have avocados. Like I buy tons of avocados. I put them on everything. And for those of you who are watching later, I'm replying to people's questions, and that's why it sounds like I'm having a half-sided conversation. What kind of chilies? I think we already did that, right? The green chilies. Yep, you already answered that question. So do you guys feel like you have the basics of what you need to create some Buddha bowls or some wholesome meals? And we call them bowls, right? But we could have put these on plates. Like the poutine, I normally put on a plate. Depends on actually how thick my gravy is and how many French fries I'm having. So again, the bowls don't matter either. What we're talking about today are the elements of what makes a wholesome, plant-based vegan meal with lots of flavor. And you can put it in a bowl, you can eat it hot, you can eat it cold, you can put it on a plate. This is how to do it. This is how to cook it. This is how to do the flavor profiles. How would you alter the poutine if using sweet potatoes for the fries? Honestly, I wouldn't alter anything. They just take longer to cook because you have to go, if you air fry them. A lot of people buy their air fryer and then they make sweet potatoes and then they're real upset because they're expecting crispy, they're expecting their sweet potatoes to look like russet potatoes. And so I remind people to think back on restaurants you've gone to and when you've ordered sweet potato fries, they don't look like crispy russet potatoes, right? So there's a lot of water in a sweet potato. So I cook them lower temperature first. I do 330, and then I will start checking them on them like at 15 minutes and then maybe 20 minutes, and then I'll bump the heat up for the last 5 minutes. And so the texture will be a little bit different, but sweet potatoes are amazing with this. So any potato will do. Greens, beans, and grains forever. That's right. I love that. Was Dave pleased? I don't know. It's a good question. You know what he's doing? He's such a nerd. I love him. He's playing Dungeons and Dragons in there. Isn't that cute? He's with his little buddies. I don't even know. I'll walk in and he'll be like, I believe that this person will have a weapon that does. I'm like, what language are you speaking right now? Anyway, it's cute. He's doing D&D. So I have no idea. If you were to dip the sweet potato wedges in aquafaba and then spice, would they crisp in the air fryer? This is what I'm going to say. Same thing stands. So whether aquafaba is what I use as a replacement for oil. And so it's not going to do what oil will do, but it will give you a texture a little bit more of what you're looking for. So if you're doing russet potatoes and you use aquafaba, instead of getting a golden and crispy French fry, you're going to get a puffier and brown and wonderful French fry. 400 degrees, 20 minutes, you don't have to change anything. If you choose to use aquafaba on your sweet potatoes, it's still not going to turn that sweet potato into the result of a fried russet potato. It will give you a sweet potato made without oil that has more texture than if you hadn't used oil at all. So I hope that makes sense. Love to batch cook sweet potatoes in your Instant Pot, store in the refrigerator, and take them out and cut into fries. That's a great idea, Lori. Cool. That's a really great idea. We do, you know what we've been doing, and that's one of the reasons I bought this big old French fry cutter, is I will, especially if I've had potatoes for a while and they might just be starting to get soft, and I'm concerned, you know, I want to use them up. Which is kind of funny because I mean we eat potatoes constantly, so we rarely run out. But when I'm doing my batch cooking over the weekend, I will slice in that cutter all of them, and then I put them in, let's see, this big bowl covered in water, and I set this in the refrigerator and I let it sit all week. And then during the week, I just take out the amount that I want for whatever we're gonna have for dinner, rinse off the starchy water, and then I use a tea towel to wrap them up to kind of pat them dry and cook them. But I keep the rest are still in here. So I've preserved them by getting them in the water. The soaking in cold water really does pull out starch. I'm not pulling out starch because I don't want to eat the starch. By doing that, it changes and turns it into a crispier texture. So Lori, back to you, trying to find maybe a crispier fry without the oil, between the aquafaba and taking that extra step to soak your fries in cold water first and then rinse them and then pat them dry in a tea towel is really helpful. Any other questions? All right, who's making Buddha bowls this week? Tell me. Oh, and I remember the question I wanted to ask you. I can't turn it into a poll. So you guys, here's the deal. When I teach the cooking class from my new book, The Complete Plant-Based Diet, I'm going to be doing it in an RV. And the truth of the matter is it's going to have to be during the week and kind of during the day because it's going to be October and it's going to be getting dark. I have no idea what the lighting is going to be like in there. And so if I were to do a cooking class on, let's say, a Wednesday, I'll be on Central Time. So let's say, like, if it was at 1 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, how many of you feel like you'd be able to come live? I mean, this is a lot more fun for me when you guys are actually here. You obviously can register for it and you can get the video later, so that's not an issue. I just don't want to feel like it's just me talking to Zoom all by myself. Oh, look at all you that can do it. Oh my gosh. Done. All right, that's what's going to happen. So I'll get that set up and I'll get it on my website. So the upcoming classes are, Dave and I are going to do how to veganize family recipes. And I do want to make sure you know, we're not just doing the goulash. So we're going to do 2 versions of the goulash. Dave's version, which is more of kind of like, he likes the vegan meat because, and then I'm like, I want chickpeas. So anyway, so we're going to have 2 versions of the Hungarian goulash. And then I'm going to do my version of like the Midwestern goulash, which is like elbow macaroni and some ground whatever. I haven't decided yet. Maybe mushrooms. Maybe mushrooms. But I'm also going to talk you through some of the recipes I've been veganizing lately. Like if you guys follow me on Instagram or on my Facebook, you probably saw that on Labor Day, I made my mom's potato salad. And my mom's potato salad, the star is actually hard-boiled eggs. I freaking made hard-boiled vegan eggs. It was weird. I'm not going to probably do that in the class. It was somebody else's recipe. I found it on a blog. And it was basically soy milk, agar, and black salt, which is actually pink. It's got that sulfury, eggy smell. Heated it up, put it in little egg molds. And then the yolk was instant mashed potatoes, which Edward & Sons makes them vegan, and turmeric, and I think a little bit more soy milk. And it was very yellow. And it was basically a potato mix. Put it in the freezer. And then I scooped out little pieces of the gelled soy milk and put the little yolk in, which was hilarious because I went through all of that. And then I just chopped it up and put it in a salad anyway, but whatever. I mean, I never said I was the brightest person around when it comes to that. But anyway, I'm going to talk to you about how like that came about. Like, what did I do? How did I try to make mom's potato salad, but completely vegan? And then I made some delicious baked beans with gigante beans. I don't know if you've had them. They're a Greek bean. Gigante probably is self-explanatory. They're huge. They're white. They're wonderful. And I added things just like molasses and barbecue sauce and liquid smoke and I used mushrooms instead of like pork or bacon. And I just like seasoned the heck out of those mushrooms first and gave them sort of bacony and sort of meaty flavor before I added the sauce to the beans. So those are the kinds of things we're going to talk about in that class. And then for the French class, I think we're going to be making, tarte flambe, which is like a really thin crusted, is Susan here in the class? Susan was with me in France last year. Where are you, Susan? The tarte flambé was ridiculous. It was so good. So we're going to do a tarte flambé. Where do you get the gigantic? You know what? You were really close, Sue. The Gigante is Gigantes, and there's a store called Olive Nation online, and I get them from them, and they're dry. So it took like 90 minutes dried in the Instant Pot to cook them, but then they were just like sort of al dente. But then I knew I was going to bake them for an hour, and the really yummy sauce, so they came out perfect. So, okay, 9 a.m. Hawaii time, Valerie, that's going to be awesome. I'm going to be in RV in Illinois, hopefully with the leaves changing. You're going to be in Hawaii, and we're going to be cooking together. It'll be amazing. I know Susan, who's here, we did the Vegan France trip together. It was the most extraordinary trip. And maybe, Susan, if you're up for it, no pressure, but if you take that class, I might put you on camera if you want, because I know some people have been interested about hearing that trip about what it was like to eat vegan in France. It was amazing. So we can do that. So anyway, we've got the French class, and then it'll be like the third week of October will be the complete plant-based diet cookbook sort of celebration. It's a week in advance. But you guys, again, remember, go to my website. I'm going to put the link again. If you're not on my newsletter list, get on the newsletter list. Because listen, I'm just going to tell you why I'm telling you this. So my publisher told me, and they've never let me do this before. My publisher told me that I could send out an email. I'm only sending it out to people. There's Susan. I see your smiling face. I can send it out to people who have been opening the emails. And obviously you guys do, because that's how you're registering for class. Because I have like a list of like 10,000 people, but there's probably like, I don't know, like 2,300 people who open it regularly. But I don't know if it's this Friday or the following Friday. I'm going to send a survey to you to ask if you want to get a PDF of the new book or a hard copy of the new book. And the publisher's letting me do this so that when the Kindle version comes out, you guys can do reviews on Amazon in advance. But that means, like, it doesn't matter how many of you say yes. So if you all say yes, you can get a copy of the book, like before the book comes out. That's why you need to be on my newsletter list. So, okay. So go to my website, and you can, I think a thing pops up right away to ask. And then I told you about Drew and his delicious, yummy Italian baked goods. And then finally, I just want to once again, because I know that not everyone was here when it started, but these classes are possible because so many of you are paying the suggested fee. Some of you are paying more than that, which is very generous and nice of you. And some of you, I thank goodness, are taking this class for free, because that's why I'm doing this. And so if you've taken the class for free and you've decided that you like what is going on, this is a link for tips. And you can trust that I do good things with those tips, like the Love and Arms Animal Sanctuary Gala is coming up. And it's virtual this year. I'm on the board of directors, and I did a fundraiser for my birthday when I turned 55. And first, my goal was to raise $550 for 55, and I raised that in a day. So then I bumped it up to $1,055 for 10 years vegan and 55, and I raised that within 2 days. And then I bumped it up to $1,855, 18 years vegetarian, 55 years old, and I made that, and then I donated it as well. So we were able to give $2,000 to an amazing farm animal sanctuary in Colorado. So I want to thank you all for letting me do what my passion is, which is to teach you how to cook and get excited about vegan food, to make it easy, to make it accessible so that you will do it, and so that I can feel like I'm in community with you, because I eat, breathe, and everything is about a world filled with justice for people and for animals. And so I thank you once again for coming here to be with me. Next class is September 26th. I'm going to open up the gallery, and I'm going to turn off the mute all. So if you want to say hello or goodbye, I would love to hear you, and I'm going to put this here. Don't feel like you have to, but I love to look at your faces before we sign off. And I feel like that woman from Romper Room, Christina and Beverly and Kathy and Kim and Tanisha and Dicey and Pam and Janet and Susan. We're going to talk about France. And there's Mary Lee. And then some people, you don't have your name, so I can't call you by your name. And there's Kyra and Joelle. And then I see lots of people who are doing private things. Hey, Betty, look at she's like, all right, I'll show you my face. Hi, Betty. So you guys, thank you so much. It was wonderful, as always, to see you. Feel free to say goodbye on your way out if you want to. And I will be sending probably tonight or later today, the link to the video if you want to watch it over again, and definitely to the 2 recipes. And I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you again. You guys are, this is the thing I look forward to all week long. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank